Berachot Perek Gimel Mishnah Aleph. Again, today I want to dedicate this learning to the memory of Mr. Yisrael Tuchman Zichrono Livracha, who just passed away. His burial is actually quite soon in Israel today. He's a wonderful man, a very special man, and Mishnah should be L'Ilu Nishmato. Misha Meito Mutal Lefanav. Person who's Meito, his dead relative, his deceased relative, Mutal Lefanav, is placed before him. In halacha, this is a person is called aninut. Okay, it's called an onen. The onen, the halacha of an onen is that an onen has an obligation to be busy with the needs of the deceased. This is a very important principle in Jewish law, that if someone has a relative who has passed on to the next world, halacha takes a great priority. Judaism places a very strong priority on doing and taking care of the needs of the niftar, the person who passed away. So therefore, halacha takes everythh on hold. Halachically, the Gemara says in Moed Katan, Misha Meito Mutal Lefanav, same language, Misha Meito Mutal Lefanav, Oshu Tarud B'Kfurato, or even if he's not Lefanav, but he is engaged, Tarud, from the word Tirda, occupied in the burial of his relative, Eino Ochel Basar, Ve'eino Shotei Yayin, he does not eat meat or drink wine, Upatur Mikol HaMitzvot, and he's exempt from all mitzvot, chutz b'yom HaShabbat, except for Shabbat. So the same thing we apply in here, in our Mishnah deals in Kriyat Shema. If a person is an onen, Misha Meito Mutal Lefanav, Patur mikriyat Shema umin hatfilah umin hatfilin. He's exempt from reciting Kriyat Shema. He's exempt from prayer, from tefillah, from Shemona Esrei, and he's even exempt from wearing tefillin. You're supposed to be so all-encompassed and all-engaged with the needs of your loved one who has passed on that you're not obligated in any mitzvah. What's the nature of this exemption? So it turns out it's machloket between Rashi and the Rambam and Baalei Tosfot and the Rash. Rashi and the Rambam says the Chachamim give you a break, because if you're busy with your relative, then you can't worry about having to fulfill mitzvot or davening or what have you. You have to take care of it right away. There should be an emergency. It's actually interesting, in the United States, where I lived, until we moved to Israel, like, there's a Chaver Kadisha, and there are people that are doing this for you. Like, in old times, there was nobody. You did it. You had to take care of it. So it had to be done right away. So therefore, the idea that, no, I got to stop, I got to daven, I got to say Shema, I got to put on tefillin, it would make sense. Then Chazal would say, no. Take care of what you have to take care of. Today, it's very interesting because, the family comes and they make arrangements, and then, a day goes by, or half a day goes by, or they're waiting for relatives, or what have you, and they're onenim, they're patur, because that's the technical halacha. So Rashi and the Rambam say that the Chazal here, they were mekil, they exempted you from the obligation and the requirement. He says, but if one wanted to be machmir and fulfill the mitzvah, because let's say for whatever reason you have plenty of time and you're just sitting around, then why not? He could. Baalei Tosfot and the Rosh disagree and said that one is totally exempt and one is not permitted to be machmir. One is not permitted to be strict upon himself and fulfill mitzvah. Today we paskin like that opinion, and an onen does not fulfill mitzvot until after the burial. So as we all know, as when they took the deceased out to the cemetery, they would carry the coffin. So the people carrying the coffin were engaged in the mitzvah of Kurat Hamet, of burying the deceased. So says the Mishnah, Nosei Hamita, those people who were Nosei Hamita carried the coffin, V'chilufeihen, and their, Lachlik means to switch, means their, their replacements, thank you. And their replacements, because especially if they had to carry the coffin away, it got heavy, so they would switch. And they would switch back. Whether they're before the coffin, they're next in line, or achar mita, or behind. If they're if the coffin needs them, if they're engaged in the mitzvah, then they're obligated to say, from saying Kriyat Shema. But if they're not needed for the burial, then chayavin. Then they're obligated. Meaning, very simply, are you asek by mitzvah? If you're engaged in performing the mitzvah, then you're patur. Then you don't have to say Kriyat Shema. You're busy doing something else. So you're exempt from Kriyat Shema. On the other hand, if you're just walking along and you're accompanying, then you're chayavin. Then you do have to say Kriyat Shema. Why? Because remember that we learned that the basic obligation of kavanah is really bare minimum Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And a person should try for the first paragraph, but you can do it while you're walking. You can have kavanah, you're standing behind, you're 2 rows back, you're whatever, you're just accompanying the whole crowd. There's no reason why you can't say Shema. But Elu ve'elu p'turim min ha'tefillah. Both of these groups, whether the people carrying the coffin or the other ones, they're exempt from Kriyat Shema. You're in the middle of the funeral procession. It's a mitzvah le'lavot et hamet, to accompany the deceased to its final resting place. You're engaged in a mitzvah, and therefore you're not required to say Shemona Esrei for two obvious reasons. One, the difference between Kriyat Shema and Shemona Esrei, according to the Bar Tanura. I didn't see this. No, one difference is Shemona Esrei you have to stop, you have to stand, and you're in the middle of walking. So what are you going to do? Another reason is because Tefillah requires that the Rabbeinu Yonah says, and the other ways in the Rabbeinu the Bar Tanura says is because Shemona Esrei requires a greater kavanah. Remember, we learned a couple Mishnah ago, last parak, that if you're up in the tree, you can say Kriyat Shema. But you can't say Shemona Esrei when you're up in the tree because you have to have more specific kavanah, more specific concentration. So here too, we see another example where if you're accompanying the deceased on the final procession, as they're walking along through town and out of town to the cemetery, if you can, steal back and say Kriyat Shema while you're walking, you're chayav. But if it's time to say Shemona Esrei, you all don't stop and say, make a mincha minyan, and then keep going. You're exempt from tefillah because it was sake mitzvah, patur min ha-mitzvah. As always, comments or questions, you can email me rspolter@gmail.com. Have a great day.